Hello, and welcome back to Shan's Behind the Scenes, the series with short fun facts about any of my series development. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the origins of Phantasm and the evolution of his design. A lot of you know this model as Phantasm. Most of you also know that this model is a public model that lots of people have used, known as Withered Shadow Fredbear by Tyrex Chip. It's based off of this Fredbear design from a fanfic called 26 Frights of Freddy. So, what does this mean? Did I just adopt this model for Phantasm? Well, yes, but that wasn't my plan. Believe it or not, I had a design in mind that just happened to be similar to this model. I can't give an exact date that this happened, but I remember it was around FNAF's 2018 anniversary. I went to go visit my family with my mom, and on the drive there, I was drawing concept ideas for Vengeance, as this was right after I decided it was going to be a thing. I knew two of the main characters were going to be Nightmare and Shadow Freddy. But I didn't want Shadow Freddy to just look normal. I made him a bit more slender than fat, gave him a nightmare hand since, in the story, his physical form is related to Nightmare, and I also knew I wanted him to be Sammy Emily, Charlie's brother from the Silver Eyes books. So I gave him tears to relate his design to the puppet, who Charlie possesses in the games. Honestly, at this point though, Phantasm is just such a completely different character than Sammy from the novels, who didn't even really have much of a character in the first place, that I kind of forget they were related. You might notice something interesting in this picture though, that being that his name wasn't always Phantasm. It was just Shadow, relating to Shadow Freddy. I ended up changing this pretty quickly by looking up synonyms for both Nightmare and Shadow, which Phantasm is for both. The drawing isn't very good. I mean, look at the Nightmare on the right. Ew. Anyways, I did a quick drawing to show more of what I meant for him to look like. Now he looks a bit more familiar, huh? The interesting thing about this original Phantasm concept art is that he doesn't have any sharp teeth, which I decided to change again to look more like Nightmare, which you can see with the second drawing of Phantasm I did. Obviously, there are a lot of similarities with Tyrex Chip's model. So, did I just say it was good enough and use it out of laziness rather than actually making a model of my design? Not quite. You see, this super old poster showed that originally, I was planning on editing a Shadow Freddy model within SFM. But I couldn't make it look like the concept art by just editing it, meaning I'd need to make my own model. Nowadays, that would be no problem. But back then... Look, I tried it, and it birthed this monstrosity. I think you can see why I had to use Tyrex chips. Funnily enough, whenever I draw Phantasm, I usually tend to draw him more in line with my original idea, but with tweaks to be closer to Tyrex Chip's model. I tried again a few years later to make another Phantasm model myself, which wasn't anywhere near as bad as the first one. And since I made it myself, I was able to put it on a poster. But I could never use it for more beyond that and a now privated Halloween special. It wasn't as good of a model as I would need for an actual episode, and even if it was, I don't think people would like how big of a change it would be. Fun story though, after I decided to unretire from YouTube, I considered making Vengeance an original series not tied to FNAF in any way. Here's two different concept designs I made for Phantasm during that time, one cartoony and one more realistic. The realistic one I heavily relied on another image for, if not practically tracing it, because I'm not good at drawing non-cartoony things. I don't know who made the original image, and I don't have it anymore, so... sorry. After deciding it would be too much work to change Vengeance now, and that not many people would care about it anymore if I did, I stuck with it being related to FNAF. Someday though, I'd like to make a version that's not connected. Anyways, I've always kind of felt bad that I'm using Tyrex Chip's model for an original character, so I made a new Phantasm model. And just so we're clear, when I say I made a new Phantasm model, I'm not claiming I made all the parts or textures myself. The endo is edited from the Help Wanted endos, and the teeth and tear textures are borrowed from Tyrex Chip's model. The head obviously looks very similar to his, and most probably won't even notice that it's a bit different, but this is something I completely modeled myself just with reference to his. I still feel bad for it looking so similar, but I can't just change it completely after 5 years. But I promise it isn't a complete copy. The body is different, and the head is fatter to be a tiny bit closer to what I originally envisioned. I will be using this model from now on. Years ago, Tyrix Chip actually joined my Discord server and said he was cool with what I was doing. And I'm always grateful that he didn't just see it as some cringe FNAF OC. Or who knows, maybe he did, but just didn't want to deal with it. Either way, thank you, Tyrix Chip. Also, I kept an unwithered version when remodeling Phantasm, so here's unwithered Phantasm. It's pretty cursed.